Nitro with the nice flow. Y'all acting like y'all don't know. Stop acting like y'all don't know.
Joe Campbell.
Who the future? We the future. Who the future? Us, us. Who the future? We the future. Who the future? Us, us. Causing chaos in the back of the bus, bus. Get your hands up. We gon' show you how we buzz, buzz. Yeah, the future.
On a suddenly not so casual winning Wednesday evening, it is CFB Knowledge for College Bowl Season, the show, part 2. It is December 21st, 2022. It brings a smile to my face. It's the first day of winter, a new season, a new opportunity to dominate, and also an opportunity to continue riding with us through this profitable and conversational campaign of college football. Sharking the gun, guns picks. What's going on tonight, brother?
Man, are we having a beautiful college football bowl season. 7-2 against the spread, 8.65 units so far. We were 3-2 on the show last week, but the leans were the key. If you actually listen to everything that we say on the show, we give you the proper knowledge for the college, and we will continue that trend into week 2. Gosh, I love bowl season. I'm ready to roll. Let's go.
Yeah, and for those of you guys hanging out with us, 27 on Twitter, get people into the chat here. We're having a beer. As we say, we want to keep this casual. We want to engage with you guys. If you guys are drinking a beer, type in the chat. What are you drinking? What are you watching tonight? If you're watching NBA, football, whatever is going on. I'm sitting on a Blizzard Hops IPA 6.4% Trogs in Pennsylvania. Cheers up, fears down. And Guns drinking something. I love it. On brand, not showing what's going on there. I love it. And
Miller lattes. We're drinking Miller lattes tonight. We're keeping it light until we get to Friday. That's what I'm trying to do.
And not waiting around. Bowl game tonight in 40 minutes. In fact, New Orleans Superdome in Louisiana. South Alabama against Western Kentucky. The gun has an official on the Sun Belt favorite. Talk to me on this one, and we'll get into the conversation.
Man, do we love the Fun Belt, as I call it. South Alabama having a banner year, 10-2 straight up this year. Only losses were against UCLA by 1 point. Sun Belt and to the Sun Belt champs, Troy by 4. Troy was the only team that was keeping South Alabama from the Fun Belt Championship. They finished the year on a 5-game winning streak, plus 13 point differential, plus 121 net yards for the year. Now you got to look at Western Kentucky. Finished the year 8-5, plus 13 point differential, plus 102 net yard average for the season. QB Austin Reed. Now he's hit the transfer portal, but he's going to be playing in this game, so he's bouncing back and forth. Made the decision that he was going to step up and play in this game, so take that into account. He had a monster year, 8.1 yards per attempt, 41 touchdowns, 9 INTs for the season. He was the second-ranked passing quarterback in the country. Now you got Western Kentucky will be without some key starters here. So we have to look at the opt-outs when we're looking at these bowl games. They're going to be losing their offensive center and offensive tackle. They're both starters, and they're losing their second-best wide receiver and their top defensive player. You look at the South Alabama side. They're ready to play. No key opt-outs on the South Alabama side. Now we look at non-conference play. I like looking at how these teams perform in non-conference. You have Western Kentucky plus 2 point differential, plus 47 net yard average. But their best non-conference team that they played all year was Auburn. And you know how Auburn played this season. And they lost 41-7. Now look at South Alabama versus non-conference opponents, plus 20 point differential, plus 145 net yard average. Their best competition was a juggernaut of a team in the Pac-12, UCLA. They only lost by 1 point. This is a good team here, folks. Now look at Western Kentucky, 1-4 versus the Sun Belt, and 1-3-1 against the spread at neutral sites. Boy, you look at South Alabama, 4-0 against the spread versus non-conference opponents. I think Western Kentucky's offense I think Western Kentucky's offense was their strong spot this year, but with the QB transfer roller coaster, I think there's going to be a lot of different emotions with that, knowing that this is going to be his last game playing for the Hilltoppers. and also you got to look at like the coaching dynamic in this one. South Alabama, this is their first season where they've actually had like this dominant season. They're going to want to finish this out with an exclamation point, and I think the South Alabama being favored here is the right spot. So give me South Alabama minus 3.5, and this is a 3.5 unit play for me. So let's go.
Yeah, and I'm looking at it now. I think you made a comment. This South Alabama team, and this is USA for those of you betting this in your sports books. This is not the U.S. men's soccer team. This is the South Alabama Jaguars, and we're feeling positive energy with the Jags, obviously going back to last weekend. But I think when you really look at this game, this team could have run the table. They could have gone undefeated in this season. Their only losses, as you mentioned, at UCLA by 1 point late on a walk-off field goal by UCLA. UCLA team that was very competitive in the Pac-12 this year, 32-31. And then slightly later on, they were coming home. They were in home game 2 against Troy, a real low-scoring 10-6 game. I had actually taken Troy that week. It was Thursday, October 20th. But key point, 10-2 straight up. A 1 point loss to UCLA and a 10-6 tight loss to Troy, who won the conference. So this team had the same record as Troy, I believe, at 10-2, didn't get into the conference title game because of tiebreaker loss to Troy. And you start to really go through what's the detailed point to fade Western Kentucky. I think the game against Auburn does stand for something here. As you mentioned, Auburn this year, very, very down in the SEC. And I think that this should be theoretically the spot where South Alabama does want to play up to the moment, not having had the opportunity to go to the Sun Belt title game and maybe get into even more of a prestigious bowl. So I think this could go either way. I'm not official on this. I don't think this is going to be a blowout. I will say that. I think this could be tight because I do think Western Kentucky has been tight and effective on the number themselves on the road if you really go down their schedule. But the Gun with a 3-unit special kicking off here in 35 minutes in New Orleans, South Alabama -4. Next play, we're going tomorrow, Thursday, December 22nd, going down to Texas, Air Force against Baylor. Baylor out of the Big 12, 6-6. Air Force 9-3. A lot of line movement moving towards Air Force. The Gun got it early, an official play, and this is some great conversation to discuss this game.
Listen, you get Air Force at anything on the plus besides the 3, you might as well just take them on the money line. I did get them at 5.5 here, and I'm also going to be taking them on the money line. Now, let me tell you why. Air Force is coming off a 3-game win streak. And they're playing in the Armed Forces Bowl, by the way. So take that into account here. For this season, they were plus 15-point differential, plus 142 net yard average. Now, Baylor had a rough year. They're coming into this game off a 3-game losing streak, including a 38-27 loss to Texas in the final regular season game. Air Force in this spot, triple option offense, as we all know how these Armed Forces teams run. They averaged 5.4 yards per carry this season, 331 yards per game on the ground. Now let's look at the Baylor defense. As of late, they have struggled stopping the run, allowing 186 yards per game on the ground, 4.5 yards per carry in the last 4 games. So this is a team defensively that is regressing. Now you look at Baylor, they want to run the ball as well. 4.6 yards per carry on the ground, 194 yards per game. Now, Air Force defense on the other side has been very strong at stopping the run. They are ranked 9th in rushing defense, 3.5 yards per carry, only 100 yards per game. Most of their competition has been relatively weak, however, so take that with a grain of salt. But we look at the motivational factor with these bowl games here, folks. Baylor is probably less motivated here. They ended up 6-6 after a year where they actually won the Big 12 championship and a New Year's Six bowl against Ole Miss. This is a complete deep dive regression as far as their bowl capabilities are concerned. Now they are playing a pre-Christmas bowl versus a very strong Air Force team that is always motivated to play any game, anytime, anywhere. I love the discipline of the Air Force here. They are 4-1 against the spread in the last 5 bowls. So dating back to 2014. So I'm going to be rolling with Air Force here, plus 5.5. I got it at that line. I would take it anywhere on the plus and also sprinkle on the money line here, plus 160 as the play.
Yeah, I'm agreeing with you. I'm going to go official on this. As I mentioned last weekend, I personally didn't lose a bet betting Bulls. And you guys heard this show. I dropped a bunch of random leans. I went with it. We're not talking about leans versus not. I know people want the officiality, and I get it completely. But we are dominating this calendar season in the bowl season. This is my first official play, plus 3.5, 1 unit. And Guns mentioned it, but if you really go down the Baylor schedule, I think Baylor is really cratering down here to end their season. 3 straight losses, all to ranked opponents within the Big 12. Kansas State at home, 31-3. TCU, a tight one, 29-28, a walk-off by TCU. And at Texas, a 38-27 loss. But I think the moral of the story here is, emotionally and from a motivational standpoint, that was the high point of their season, the Big 12 calendar. And when you compete your heart out, a lot of tight losses and a pretty even straight-up record within the Big 12, you don't have a lot left. You're not super inspired. And as Guns mentioned, obviously Air Force playing in the Armed Forces Bowl, maybe some secondary motivation there. But if you go to Air Force's schedule, this definitely speaks more to an Air Force spot. If you go through Air Force schedule, interesting stuff developing. Air Force is actually 1-0 out of conference early season against an opponent type in a big Power 5 conference, Colorado, 41-10. But more importantly, they had 3 losses within this campaign. 2 were on the road, and both were in regional rivalry games within the Mountain West, at Wyoming and at Utah State. Super tight loss to Wyoming, 17-14, and super tight loss to Utah State, Saturday, October 8th, 34-27. Key point here is regional rivalry road games. Brutal stuff. This team has momentum, a dub 4 coming in. They will want this game far more than Baylor. And the line is showcasing all of these narrative points, obviously moving down from 5.5 to 3.5 now. We think Air Force probably wins this game outright. Plus 3.5, 1 unit official. Next play, Guns pick. San Diego State playing Middle Tennessee State on Christmas Eve, 8 o'clock Eastern, ESPN in Hawaii. I believe that's a 6-hour difference. Don't check me on that. So theoretically, that's 2 o'clock in the afternoon in Hawaii. San Diego State traveling a little more normal on their body time versus Middle Tennessee State, who had some very lackluster efforts on the road this season. San Diego State official minus 6.5. What's going on in this game, Guns?
Shark did me a favor for not talking about the egregious games that are on the slate up to the New Year's Eve game. But let's talk about this game here with Middle Tennessee State. Middle Tennessee State finished the season 7-5, 3 straight wins, plus 1 point differential, minus 23 net yard average for the year. Look at San Diego State. They finished the season 7-5 as well, winning 5 out of the last 7, plus 1 point differential and minus 14 net yard average. San Diego State made a season change. This is what it's all predicated on. They fired their OC after a loss in versus Boise in week 5. Since that change, they are 5-2 against the spread, plus 7 point differential, plus 81 net yards. So the change worked. Brady Hoke did a good job as a head coach making that swap. Now you look at Middle Tennessee State here. Does not have a single win versus a bowl eligible team this season. While San Diego State has 2. They beat Toledo and they beat San Jose State. So take that with a grain of salt looking at this game. Also, you look at Middle Tennessee State when they play in bowl games. They're 2-5 against the spread in bowl games. So what I think here is I think this team will basically the game will come down to Middle Tennessee's passing game versus San Diego State's passing defense. I give the edge to San Diego State's defense in the matchup. Plus, with the newfound offensive production that San Diego State has in this game, I just really like the fact that they're able to score now, which you're not used to with a San Diego State team. They usually just rely heavily on the defensive side and their special teams. So I think they'll pull out a win here in this bowl game, and the line is right. So I'm going to be taking San Diego State -6.5, and it's a 1.5 unit play for me.
Yeah, I would tend to agree with this, and I think you were detailing it, but very similar to Boise State. Schematic change and also a quarterback change mid-season seems to have really flipped this for San Diego State. San Diego State had a very noteworthy loss in the opener against Arizona at home Saturday, September 3rd, a blowout loss, actually 38-20. And they really were hovering in a purgatory at that point in time. But when they made this quarterback change, they are 5-2 straight up since. And those only 2 losses were a very tough road game in a back-to-back road sequence at Fresno State on October 29th, a really tight, tough loss, 32-28, and the season closing game against Air Force, of course, we just discussed, 13-3. You're catching Middle Tennessee State in an environment I don't think they function particularly well in, and I think you can actually cross-reference this with the opener for Middle Tennessee State at James Madison, a blowout, lackluster loss, 44-7. Why do I correlate this to the opener? Because of a long layoff. They won't have played here since November 26th, basically a full month. They'll be playing out of conference in Hawaii, and I think this is a very uncomfortable position for them, which you can cross-reference with James Madison. I'm not officially on this, but I do agree with the gun here.
Let's talk real quick on that game. So if you want to talk about motivational factor here, San Diego State's been there a week earlier than they have to be. Middle Tennessee State didn't show up until a week before. So is it prep or is it vacation? You make the decision, but I think it's more prep than vacation. So take that into account as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And next play, we're jumping to Tuesday. There are some bowl games in between. We're doing Wednesday through Wednesday. So if anybody has any questions about the other games, maybe we'll discuss it after we go through the official plays. But there are some other angles to discuss. But staying course here, noon Eastern, Montgomery, Alabama, Buffalo versus Georgia Southern. Guns picks, Georgia Southern -3.5, an official.
Yeah, I love Georgia Southern here. Let me tell you why. Buffalo lost 3 out of the last 4 games of the season and narrowly beat Akron 24-23 to gain their bowl eligibility. This was a game that they had to extend an extra week for some weather issues or something like that. So going into that game, a tough spot for Buffalo. But they ended up getting the win. They finished the season with a +2 point differential, -15 net yard average in their last 4 games. But in the last 4 games, they finished with a -7 point differential, -59 net yard average, 105th toughest schedule in the country. Now you look at Georgia Southern here. They lost the 3 out of the last 4 games as well. But it was all against strong G5 teams. If you actually look at the games that they had to play South Alabama, ULL, and Marshall. All bowl teams here, folks. But they did get the win over a good Appalachian State team, 51-48 to gain their bowl eligibility. So they want to be here. They had a +2 point differential for the year, but a -28 net yard average as well. But in the last four games, they did regress, but they had to play tough competitions to take that into regard. -9 point differential, -110 net yard average. Look at the non-conference opponents that Georgia Southern has faced. If you actually look at the numbers here, they were +13 point differential non-conference, +80 net yard average, 3-1 straight up in non-conference. Don't forget, this is a team that basically buried Scott Frost in Nebraska off a late field goal and killed his tenure with the Cornhuskers. But you look at Buffalo versus non-conference opponents, -3 point differential, -20 net yard average, 1-3 straight up versus non-conference opponents. And that includes a loss to Holy Cross. Did Holy Cross had a football team? That was the first time I've ever seen them on anybody's board, but I guess they do have a football program. Also, Georgia Southern, what are they? They are a pass-first offense. They average 328 yards per game passing through the air, but they also can run the ball. They have some good running backs with Jalen White, Gerald Green. Both averaged 5.6 yards per carry and 16 touchdowns combined. So they can beat you every which way on the offensive side. Buffalo's defense, they gave up 200 plus yards on the ground to 6 of their opponents this season, and they gave up 5 yards per carry overall. So this is a defense that is Swiss cheese when it comes to stopping the run. They've also gotten gashed against good passing teams. They're ranked 78th in the country against the pass. But you look at Georgia South in this, as far as their defense is concerned, they're not much better. That is their weak point, obviously. They give up 496 yards per game overall, 5.8 yards per carry to their opponents. So they give up a lot on the rush. They're ranked 129th, like bottom of the barrel as far as giving up the rush. They're Achilles. However, Buffalo will be depleted with the run game. Their 2 top running backs are hurt, and their mobile quarterback option that they utilized a lot when the starter was hurt, he's in the transfer portal. So as far as the run game is concerned for Buffalo, they're not going to give out the 100% weapons that they're used to giving in this game. So that's actually a benefit to the Georgia Southern defense that gives up gashes on the ground, but they can score and they can put up points. So that's why I like Georgia South here. I'm taking them at -3.5 in this spot. It's 2-unit special. I just think the offense is going to be too much for this Buffalo team, and Buffalo just has too many people out right now. So give me Georgia Southern -3.5, 2-unit special.
Yeah, I don't have much on this one. This is another one. I think the line here, just zooming out of the game for me, I think this is going to be sharp. I do think that, similar to what I said about the Western Kentucky game, 3.5 with teams with similar records. I'm a little worried about Buffalo being reasonable out of conference as an underdog. They did cover a big spread at Coastal, and they did cover, I believe, an earlier game as well. But as you said, losses to Holy Cross at home, very, very unimpressive stuff. Georgia Southern is definitely the better team in this game. Just a little worried this game could be tight on the number. I think personally the best look in this game is the over. I think Georgia Southern's style will pull this game up, and I don't really see Buffalo playing a lot of defense on the road in Alabama at noon on a Tuesday afternoon. You guys know MAC football. They don't play defense, and if this team's playing in a weird time in the middle of a weekday in Alabama, this game should be wide open. I don't see this defense coming out with a Leatherhead cold weather style football here in this particular game. Next one, we're going 3:15 p.m. It's the next game on that card on Tuesday afternoon. Gerald, J. Ford Stadium, Dallas, Texas, actually where SMU plays. Maybe not coincidentally, Memphis going back into the same stadium where they closed the season against SMU with a tight cover and a loss on November 26th against SMU, catching Utah State here, coming in here off a loss in their closing game on Friday night, November 25th against Boise State. Out of conference, weird spot for Utah State, specifically traveling down into the center of the country. Guns picks, we're at -7.5 unofficials.
Yeah, complete yin and yang when it comes down to the stats. Looking at 2 6-6 teams, but let's look into the stats here. Memphis won 2 out of the last 3 finished in the season, +8 point differential, +49 net yard average. But you look at Utah State. They did finish 6-6, winning 3 out of the last 4 with a -8 point differential, -34 net yard average. So take that into regard. But you look at Utah State in the last 4 weeks, +3 point differential, -4 net yard average. Memphis +16 point differential, +131 net yard average to finish off the season in the last 4 weeks. Now let's look at non-conference play. Utah -21 point differential, -92 net yard average. They did play Alabama, so take that with a grain of salt. Memphis versus non-conference opponents, +14 point differential, +38 net yard average. Also, I mean, you could go down to the road. You're basically going to hit Memphis. Now look at Utah State. Struggled stopping the run this year. They gave up 198 yards per game on the ground, 4.9 yards per carry, 5.8 yards per carry on the road. They gave up 200 plus yards on the ground to 8 out of their 12 opponents this season. Usually I don't like making it a habit to take an AAC team as a favorite, especially before Christmas in that regard. I guess it'll be after Christmas, hitting the 27th. Just a bad track track record altogether. But this Memphis team is a little bit different to me. They're just way too high of a favorite here for me not to take them. And I'm just going to be rolling with Memphis here. -7.5. It's only for a unit because of how the AAC does in bowl games. So I'm going to take Memphis. -7.5 has to play.
Yeah, I would agree with this play. I think, as I mentioned, obviously staying in a stadium they're comfortable in and to just cover a game to close the season holds some weight. I also think when you look at Utah State here, this is just not where they function well. As you mentioned, not a good road team. They did make a quarterback change after week 4. They had gotten hammered at home by UNLV. We had that officially back on September 24th. But if you go to their out-of-conference schedule, they were 0-3 ATS early season. They were laying a big number against UConn. They didn't cover, and they won outright. They went into Alabama and got absolutely hammered. They were down, I believe, 50 points in the first half, and Alabama took their foot off the gas. Probably could have won the game 85-0 if they wanted to. I mean, they also lost a home game to FCS Weber State. Shout out to Damian Lillard, a hell of a human being. However, I don't think Weber State football in 2022 is that representative. So that should tell you a bit of a story about Utah State out of conference football. In conference, 12-point loss at BYU, a cover, not representative at all of anything here. Non-cover at Wyoming, tight one at Hawaii, who was very, very down this year, and blown out at Boise State. And I think one of the things with bowl games, I talk about this oftentimes in NCAA basketball tournaments, cross-referencing records and lines, forgetting the teams. When you see Georgia Southern at 6-6, laying 3.5 to Buffalo 6-6, theoretically Buffalo is the shorter side there. When you see Memphis 6-6, laying 7.5 to Utah State 6-6, Memphis is the strong side of that dynamic. I think Memphis here probably does come away with a cover. Again, it could be close. We're not entirely sure how Utah State's going to function here in the middle of the country in a one-off. I do agree with this chalk side here at -7.5. Next play in this particular day, where I think we're just going straight through the games. For whatever reason, we like these games more on Tuesday, December.
God love it. Oh, bowl season. Let's go.
And particularly on a Tuesday afternoon, we got a quadruple header here, back to back to back to back. And we got official plays on all the games. Next game, 6:45 p.m. East Carolina versus Coastal Carolina in Birmingham, Alabama, Protective Stadium, where University of Alabama, Birmingham, the Blazers, do play their home games. ECU coming in here on what appears to be a very strong line when you look at records, 7-5, laying over a touchdown to 9-3. And we've talked about this all year. Coastal Carolina last year ranked, undefeated, darling, came into this year. People were still betting them, and they stopped covering spreads. ECU here is a juggernaut squad. And you go back to week 1 in their campaign, almost beat NC State outright to really jump off one of their most impressive seasons in years. Guns picks -7.5, unofficial.
Yeah, ECU played a lot of close games besides that week 1. They played an overtime game. I got some key opponents here. But I want to talk about Coastal Carolina and their dynamic here. So Coastal Carolina lost their last 2 games of the season. They were in the Sun Belt Championship, lost to Troy 45-26 despite a +21 net yard average for the game. Coastal Carolina did finish 9-3 for the season, -1 point differential, -2 net yard average for the year. They kind of sound like the Minnesota Vikings in a way, looking at NFL versus college football dynamics here. But you look at ECU, they finished 7-5, losing 2 out of their last 3 games. But they finished the season +4 point differential, +49 net yard average for the game. ECU did well away from home. That was kind of their sweet spot there. They were +2 point differential, +57 net yard average on the road. But you look at Coastal Carolina on the road, -5 point differential, -39 net yard average. So kind of a yin and yang as far as how these two teams deal with road games. Coastal Carolina's weakness all season has been pass defense. They give up 282 yards per game to their opponents. which is ranked 108th in the country. Now look at ECU. They can run the ball on you. They can pass the ball on you. They average 5.2 yards per carry on the ground, but they also average 289 yards per game passing. They are ranked 15th in the country in passing. This is a bad matchup for Coastal Carolina. Now, Coastal Carolina, Grayson McCall has been the news for this team, as well as their head coach, Chadwell, taking the Liberty job. But let's talk about McCall here. He's playing in this game, even though he's in the transfer portal. So I don't know how that works out with the dynamic of the team, knowing that this is his last game. Do they want to play for him? Do they not want to play for him, knowing he's going to leave? Coastal Carolina will be without their best offensive lineman in Willie Lampkin. He is the center of the team. The center is the quarterback of the line here. So having a backup replace them that doesn't have the depth, that is problematic for Coastal Carolina. Also, they lose their best pass rusher and defensive end, Josiah Stewart, who are both in the transfer portal. So you have your best lineman and your best defensive pass rusher gone for this game. Coastal Carolina also without their defensive coordinator. Also, their defensive coordinator is going to be running this game because I told you Chadwell left the team to go coach Liberty. So Coastal Carolina has so many questions as far as the motivation is concerned. Whereas ECU, who's playing their first bowl game since 2014, do you think that ECU is motivated? I haven't seen any starters saying, you know what, I'm not going to play in this game. No, these boys are here to ball. The line is set at -8 for a reason, and I'm making it a 2-unit play for me. Give me ECU -8, 2 units special.
Yeah, I agree with this play. I'm going official with this play as well. I like -7.5 here. And as you mentioned, Coastal Carolina has been a fade all year. We've been trying to take every opportunity to fade them. We have done it successfully. Go back to Saturday, October 8th at ULM, 28-21 non-cover, and come back to recent road games at JMU, absolutely blown out, 47-7. And then the Sun Belt Championship game, blown out again, 45-26 against Troy. And I really think this is psychological on both sides of the game, as Guns detailed. When Coastal Carolina with Grayson McCall was scorching hot, ranked for 2 years, obviously unranked this year within the middle of the campaign, but still winning ball games, 9-1 at one point in time, lost at JMU, and then really the biggest moment in their season, the conference championship game, to really get hammered by 19 and then have your quarterback enter the transfer portal right after that. In my opinion, this speaks to the Coastal Carolina renaissance, if you will, ending. And I think when you come in here and you look at ECU, as I introed with, and as we will continue to discuss, ECU this year out of conference, 3-0 ATS. Home game against ranked 13 NC State. Probably could have won outright. Lost by a point, 21-20. Hammered Old Dominion and hammered FCS Campbell. And a lot of representative games throughout the campaign at home. Did beat Memphis. Did beat UCF with authority. A very impressive UCF team this year. And are coming off a bit of a lackluster effort to close their season at Temple. 49-46 win. This is where ECU will want to turn up to showcase the generational upward movement. And this is where the Coastal Carolina renaissance has come to an end notably. 1 unit official from me, ECU -7.5. Next play, still on Tuesday. Apparently, December 22nd, Tuesday, will be a suddenly not so casual Tuesday afternoon into evening. Final play on the board, Wisconsin at Oklahoma State. Chase Field out in Phoenix, Arizona. Wisconsin's laying 3.5 points, but Guns is not worried about that. He's worried about the total, taking an under 43.5. Looks like it's getting steamed down now to 43, so clearly you're onto something here. Talk to me on this one.
Yeah, I got it at 43.5 here. It's a 1 unit play, so take that into account. But I want to tell you about this game. It's not worth watching. You can go to bed. Don't worry about it. Wake up, check your phone, and you'll see the total in this one. So many opt-outs on both sides of the ball here. Spencer Sanders is not going to be playing this game, the starting quarterback for Oklahoma State. So that leaves them two quarterbacks. Gunnar Gundy, who is the son of the head coach, and you have Garrett Rangel, who have combined for 52% pass completion rate, 5 touchdowns, 7 interceptions, filling in for Sanders. These are two quarterbacks that are not built and equipped to handle this type of game. Now, Oklahoma State's running game will be hurting as well too, because Sanders is their number 2 rusher, but also their top rusher, their running back Dominic Richardson, will not play in this game as well. He's going to the transfer portal. So there's a lot of missing people going into this game for the Oklahoma State team. Now, Wisconsin, look at them on the other hand. They have issues on their own. Graham Mertz, not going to be playing this game. He's in the transfer portal. And their top source of offense as well, Braylon Allen, the running back, may or may not play in this game. So you have to monitor this. The line is going down to the point where I think he's not going to be playing in this game. And why would he? The dude is an absolute legend. And quite frankly, with the coaching change to Luke Fickell, he might as well leave Wisconsin altogether and go to a better team. Wisconsin also dealing with a coaching transition, like I just mentioned. So Cincinnati's Luke Fickell is going to be taking over the program, and that's why you got so many opt-outs for Wisconsin leaving the team. So both teams in full transition period. So it's a great matchup for a bowl, right? You don't want to have one team like dealing with transitions going against a team that is highly motivated, because God forbid the books try to figure out that line would be egregious. Also, if you want to get an edge on the side, both teams are great in bowls. Oklahoma State is 7-1 against the spread in bowl games, while Wisconsin is 6-2 against the spread in bowl games dating back to 2014. But I'm focused on the total here, like Shark just said. So when you look at both teams keep against the under, Oklahoma State is 5-0 to the under in the last 5 games, and you have Wisconsin great against to the under, 4-1 versus non-conference opponents. So you have you have actually on the Wisconsin side, you have guys that have not taken snaps. I think they're combined. They may have 10 snaps at least. You have one guy that's a senior and one guy that's a freshman. And then you have 2 quarterbacks on the Oklahoma State side that really have proven to the public they're not great quarterbacks. You have one that's the Suns coach that just is probably on the Oklahoma State squad because he is the Suns coach. I don't think the offensive production is going to really be a factor in this game. And they are playing on a fast track, and the total is 43. So I'm going to be taking the under 43.5, only for a unit, just for fun, degenerate style. Wake up, get some money, and we'll move on to the 28th.
Yeah, as you've said all year, degenerate special playing the late night game, 10:15 Eastern, obviously 7 o'clock out there in Phoenix. But the next day, Wednesday, December 28th, next Wednesday, actually, winning Wednesday it will be 2 o'clock Eastern, the first game on the slate, ESPN, yet again hosting so many of these games in bowl week here. The Duke Blue Devils hosting the UCF Knights in Annapolis, Maryland, Navy Marine Corps Memorial Stadium. Guns picks honing in on, I believe, the top play on the entire card. Duke Blue Devils -3, an official.
I don't like this play. I love this play. But I want to start with UCF here for a second. UCF is coming off a AAC championship loss, 45-28 to Tulane, getting crushed in the net yards, -238 net yards for the game. UCF did finish the season 9-4, plus 11-point differential, plus 98 net yards. But in the last 4 weeks of the season, they were -1 point differential, plus 4 net yard average in that span. They had the 71st toughest schedule in the country. Now look at Duke. Great season for new head coach Mike Elko. He went 8-4. I don't think he lost a game by more than a possession, by the way. Winning 4 out of the last 5 games of the season, covering 5 out of the last 6. They finished the season with a plus 10 point differential, plus 39 net yard average, with the 80th toughest schedule in the season. So these two teams really faced similar schedules, but Duke prevailed better than UCF. Now, UCF, you know how they do it. They're a run-first offense, complemented with a pass. They average 236 yards per game, 5.3 yards per carry this season. However, look at Duke's defense against the run. They give up 3.7 yards per carry this season to their opponents, 3.4 yards per carry in the last 4 games. They are ranked 24th in the country against the run. This is a complete changeover. Mike Elko is a defensive guy, and that is where this comes from. You have a Duke defense that is completely motivated for this one. UCF's defense struggled stopping the run, by the way. The last 3 games, they give up 200 plus to their opponents. They also gave up 6.6 yards per carry on the ground in road games this season. So you have a UCF defense that really can't stop the run. Duke's it is a run-first offense, period. 5.0 yards per carry this season with multiple weapons, including QB Riley Leonard, who is a mobile quarterback, and is their leading rusher. So you're going to have a tough time in Fitz dealing with the mobile quarterback situation here. Now, you got to deal with UCF. Let's talk about the opt-outs. Let's talk about the injury report with UCF. John Reese Plumlee is their sole source of offense. They need him in this game. He's dealing with injuries on the back half of the season. He failed to complete 5 out of the last 6 UCF games this season. He's dealing with a concussion issue. He's dealing with a shoulder issue. He's also dealing with a recent hamstring issue in the Tulane game. So he's completely banged up going into this spot. It's also important to note that their top wide receiver, Mikey Keene, I'm sorry, their backup quarterback, who is the insurance policy for UCF, not going to be playing in this game. He's in the transfer portal. He's kind of the, John Reese Plumlee 2.0 clone. He's not going to be playing in this game. So that leaves them with freshman Tom Castanano, who played in a few spots. He's only 9 for 16, 56% pass completion rate, 4.7 yards per attempt. So if John Reese Plumlee goes out of that game, guess what? UCF is absolutely screwed. So I'm going to be playing into that account here. Also, UCF is going to be without 3 other starters, including their leading receiver in Ryan O'Keefe. He's not going to be playing in this game. And then look at Duke, how they do in bowls. They're absolutely monsters in bowl games, highly motivated. Granted, that was under Cutcliffe, but I think that's going to carry over with Mike Elko here. 5-0 against the spread in bowl games. UCF is 3-4 in their last 7 bowl games. AAC teams are 8-14 in bowl games dating back to 2018. So that's why I don't like taking AAC teams too much in bowls. You have a Duke team that is highly motivated, having a monster season under first year of Mike Elko's regime. I think maybe we may see the winning this bowl, and then you see maybe Duke UNC is not so much of a basketball rivalry, but more of a football rivalry as we get 2 to 3 years down the road. So give me Duke -3. 3-unit special. Also, keynote here, I want to give this one out here. Duke is 10-2 against the spread in the second half, so they're able to adjust. So if Duke is down in the first half, hammer them in the second half. But I love Duke full game, -3, 3-unit special.
Yeah, I need to take a breath and a sip. Guns just gave us the most comprehensive analysis on a Duke football game in the history of the United States and world we live in here.
Do you want to know about their punter? Let me give you.
I feel like I just learned everything I need to know. I was going to give some takes on it. I was thinking to myself, this is all covered. So all I'm going to say is I'm also officially on Duke. I love the play. -3, 1 unit. Cheers up, fears down for a half second here.
Yeah, let's sip. Cheers, boys. Cheers to the chat.
And for those of you guys watching NBA basketball tonight, the top play was Cleveland, and Jay and I had discussed that they're fucking blowing them out. So it's great to see we're going to get back in our NBA flow in the new year. And, of course, the irony is, whenever you lay back and you're running cold, you're going to sweep the board. So I know that. I'm mildly irritated that I didn't post that. But you guys know I know what I'm doing. So go Cavaliers for those of you guys who are tailing that particular play. Final
NBA
look.
is a marathon, not a track meet. That's all you need.
Exactly. And final play, a darling of mine, and a team that did fade down the stretch to a certain degree. But Jalen Daniels and Lance Leipold in Kansas, going on the road here. Memphis, Tennessee, Simmons Bank Liberty Stadium against Arkansas. AutoZone Liberty Bowl. Guns picks. Taking Kansas, and I like this angle as well. As you guys know how many times I took Kansas early season. At +3, 1 unit or more. Is it a bigger play, Guns? Talk to me.
Kansas is a great story. Down the stretch, you have to understand what happened to them down the stretch. I'm going to tell you a little story about Kansas here. So sit down, drink some, grab your hot cocoa. Let me tell you about Kansas here. They started the year very strong. 5 straight wins over West Virginia, Houston, Duke, Iowa. They actually went on a run. They were pretty much a dog in a lot of these games. And they had to go face a TCU team, by the way, a TCU team that is playing in the college football playoff. And guess what happened? TCU mangled their quarterback in Jaden Daniels and kind of ruined their season a little bit. They lost a game, and after that, they lost 6 out of the last 7 games of the season, but they finished 6-6, 0-point differential, minus 28 net yard average. But look at Arkansas. Arkansas had high hopes for the season. They came off the bowl game. They bringing back a lot of starters. Everybody had high hopes for KJ Jefferson and the Arkansas Razorbacks altogether. They finished the season losing 3 out of the last 4 games, including a loss to Liberty as double-digit favorites. So this is a team that is in full regression as well. But I think Kansas is more predicated on injuries rather than just complete demolish of the team. If you look at Arkansas, +2 point differential and 0 net yard average. Kansas, like both these teams are very similar. I'm going to tell you why. Kansas wants to run the ball. They average 194 yards per game on the ground, 5.6 yards per carry. However, look at Arkansas's defense. They allow 4.8 yards per carry and 180 yards per game on the ground, which is ranked 117th in the country as far as rushing defense. Look at Arkansas. They love to run the football too. Average 224 yards per game, 4.9 yards per carry, but Kansas defense gives up a lot on the run, 4.5 yards per carry, 194 yards per game, which is ranked 115th in the country. So these teams are very evenly matched here. But remember, Kansas is the dog. Some noteworthy stuff as far as motivation is concerned. So Arkansas has some key opt-outs here. They're losing their first team All-ACC center, Ricky Stromberg. When you lose a center, I think you're losing a quarterback. That is what I consider that for the offensive line. The guy's giving out where you need to block, and you have to put in a new guy into that dynamic. It really kills a team. Also, their top linebacker, Drew Sanders, who is first team All SEC. He's out too, and he's preparing for the NFL draft. They also lose their second best wide receiver in Jaden Jackson, who into the transfer portal. So this is a team in Arkansas that doesn't believe in Pittman at all. There's a lot of guys that are just leaving the program altogether, including a couple safeties in the coverage I didn't really talk about here. But there is a lot of stuff that is going on with this Arkansas team that makes me believe that you got to be taking Kansas in this one because Lance Leipold knows how to run a program. Arkansas also dealing with losing their defensive coordinator. He went over to take over the UNLV head coaching job. And also, like I said, there's potential staffing changes. I know that Pittman fired their strength and conditioning coach after after the Missouri game. And also, I heard a lot of rumblings about changing the offensive coordinator as well. He is going to be coaching this game, but I think he's fearing for his life and his job as well. But Kansas, all good and gravy. They haven't been to a bowl game in a decade? Come on. I think Kansas is going to show out here and not only cover this game, but win this game outright. So give me Kansas +3, 2-unit special, and let me Salt Bay this on the money line +130 for another unit.
Yeah, that's the final play of the broadcast. We're going to detail the rest of those games next Wednesday. I will be in Florida at that point in time. visiting some family, and as I mentioned, taking a little break from official picks. But Cleveland Cavaliers tonight was the top play on the NBA board. My official plays for this particular show, bowl season part 2, and of course part 3, we will get into the big time games, the big time matchups, the playoff, and a lot of deep analysis on that. I'm on Air Force plus 3.5, 1 unit, ECU minus 7.5, 1 unit, and Duke minus 3, 1 unit. I do think there is access as well on the Memphis side and probably San Diego State as well. But I got 3 top plays: Air Force, ECU, and Duke. The gun, South Alabama right now minus 3.5, Air Force plus 5.5, now 3.5, and money line. San Diego State in Hawaii minus 6.5, Georgia Southern minus 3.5, Memphis minus 7.5, ECU minus 8, Wisconsin, Oklahoma State under 43.5, now 43, Duke minus 3, Kansas plus 3, and the money line. CFB Knowledge for College Bowl Season Part 2, Wednesday, December 21st, 2022, the first day of winter. A beautiful season it will be. High success is coming to us. I feel positive energy. We appreciate you guys interacting with us on Twitter and YouTube. The new year will bring more YouTube analysis, college basketball, baseball, new personalities, continued access to myself, the gun, J Money, and all our favorite personalities. We appreciate you guys immensely, sending you guys top vibes. I was saying on Twitter, I say I love you. I mean it. I care about you guys immensely. We hope you guys have an incredible holidays and cash tickets with us. Guns Picks, close them out, and let's fucking go.
For you 10 plus guys that absolutely watched us all the way to the end of this, God bless you. You watched us for 51.5 minutes. But please, while you're at it, hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, hit the bell to make sure you get all the content that comes on this channel. And also, we'll be clipping this stuff as we get to kickoff, so don't worry, you will not miss the content on Twitter. So please follow us on that, and make sure you share this stuff, retweets, and make sure that everybody knows who the Guns Picks is and who the Shark in Sports is. And we share this stuff so we absolutely show who the dominant motherfuckers are here on this planet. So thanks for joining us. Let's cash some tickets for this bowl season as we continue to roll on. Good luck, everybody. And as always, let's keep dancing.